Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm your host, Nathan Staples, and joining me this week are Eric Devin and Philip Bargio. With the winter window shut, things can calm back down a little as teams settle in for the long stretch to the end of the season. With European football returning on the horizon, who's in a giving mood this Valentine's Day, and who is eating ice cream straight from the tub? More on the weekend's action and less of my plans for the 14th of February after the latest headlines. Paris Saint-Germain played a strong side in Ligue 1 on Friday night, not wanting to drop points ahead of Monaco and Nice playing later in the week. And Unai Emery's bold decision was handsomely rewarded as Edinson Cavani's brace led the way in a 3-0 win at Bordeaux. Saturday's afternoon kickoff saw Guingamp defeat Lyon for the third time this season, 2-1, with Nicolas Benezet notching a goal and an assist in his first start of the campaign. In the multiplex, Toulouse continued their fine form with Andy Delors and Martin Braithwaite once again on the score sheet in a 4-1 home win over Bastia, who finished with 9 men. Dijon won at home to Caen 2-0. That moves them ahead of the Normandy side and out of the bottom three, while Angers defeated Lille at the Stade Pierre-Mauroy. Les Avignes likewise moving ahead of the suddenly relegation-threatened Doug. It was lather, rinse, repeat for the Stade Louis II as Monaco, led by a Kylian Mbappé hat-trick, waxed Metz 5-0, while Montpellier recorded their first road win of the season, 3-0, at Nancy, with the winter signing Isaac Mbenza notching a double. Sunday's early match saw Nice earn a draw at Rennes, coming back from 2 goals down to draw 2-2. Valentin Esseric with a goal and an assist for the visitors. And Saint-Etienne warmed up for their trip to Manchester by thumping hapless Lorient 4-0 at home, while Nantes lodged perhaps the shock result of a free-scoring weekend, scoring 3 goals for the first time in the league this season to hold off Marseille at the Stade Beaujois 3-2. In injury news, Monaco's Gabriel Boschilia could have his season over already after suffering ligament damage against Metz, or Bafétimbi Gomis could miss up to a month with his own knee issue after coming off against Le Canaries. And in Ligue 2, Brest lost away to Auxerre, but they still sit 4 points clear of Amiens at the top of the table. And that's all for the news. But remember, for all the latest, head on over to our website at www.getfootballnewsfrance.com and follow us on Twitter at GFFN. We start this week with Paris Saint-Germain, who have a big week ahead of them, but they had a big week last week as well. However, before we talk about their European exploits to come, they overcame a rising Bordeaux side in emphatic fashion on Friday, Philip. Do PSG look like they're finally hitting their stride with a more comfortable victory?
Well, things are quite improving. We saw that they treated that game with much more respect than they did last week's game at Dijon. They won at Dijon 3-1 last week. This was obviously played on the Friday evening because the game is tomorrow, so recuperation time and all that. Cavani has been very good. Di Maria has been better, feeling the competition, that's a word, from Julian Draxler, and the performance was much better, was much more serious. I don't know if it was because Bordeaux just transcon 4-0, or because it's a bigger game, it's a bigger club, bigger history between the two sides. Much more professional, and very much the performance that said, we want to get this one out of the way so we can focus about Barcelona. That's not much more to say, really. I mean, both sides playing in their usual formations. So games were well taken. It really was about good preparation for tomorrow evening.
Yeah, and they really hit their stride early on in this one, Eric. And Cavani scored 2 really nice finishes to say that he's been rather erratic this season in some forms. Is that showing the kind of striker he can be when he's really focused and really takes his chances with aplomb like he did?
Yeah, I mean, that first goal especially, that was, in our review column, I had that as my goal of the week. Yeah, they look great. I think even Thiago Motta, despite his customary booking, looked really good. It does appear that Thiago Silva will be out for tomorrow. That's just come through. I'm not sure how you feel about that, Philip, but he did not.
It looks confirmed. I mean, it looks.
Yes,
L'Equipe are pretty certain about it.
Yeah, Jonathan Johnson's reported that that's been confirmed by the club now.
Yeah. So, but I mean, along with that, though, I do think that that might not be the worst thing in the world. Looking forward, I think that seeing Marquinhos and Kimpembe play together for, they haven't played together all that much this season, but seeing that they can be a capable defensive partnership, I think shouldn't be undersold either. I mean, let's face it, neither of them may have the aerial ability that Silva has, but in terms of mobility and an ability to stay with players, I think that could be really important against Barcelona. And I think to have a clean sheet against the Bordeaux side that were in form, this is their first loss in the league in 2017. That's going to boost their confidence. And likewise in defense, I think Bordeaux had only conceded 2 goals in their last 6 in the league before this. They had been solid defensively playing this revamped 4-3-3, and to get 3 goals and to get them, early enough to allow Verratti, Cavani, Di Maria to come off, I think is also important. I think this is just really the ultimate in confidence boosting, because this match had trap written all over it. I think when these two teams played in the Coupe de la Ligue semifinal last month, Bordeaux had really started the game. The crowd were amped up. It was a tough to overcome. They had the attendance was 37,000. It looks like here. So the Matmut was packed out. It was they were well up for this. A Friday night, you've got the champions coming to town. Even if they're distracted, a win against PSG, that could really be a huge confidence booster for Bordeaux to look at that going forward. So they were ready to play, but PSG swatted them aside, as easily as they would, any team in the bottom half of the table. Bordeaux aren't that. They were on form, and they have a lot of promising young players. But I think this is, in a lot of ways, you might argue that maybe aside from that first match against Arsenal, that this is PSG's best performance of the season, coming as it does when it has, getting Verratti back into form and back into fitness. Di Maria and Moura are playing well. It was really impressive. I don't think I could have really hoped for more ahead of what will be their biggest match to date.
Yeah, and I did want to mention one of the players you've mentioned there, Eric, and that's Angel Di Maria, who's really improved since the winter break, Philip, and almost the signing of Draxler's calls created 2 players rather than 1. How have you thought about his improvement in the last couple of weeks? And he really scored an excellent goal and really played a good game again against Bordeaux.
Yeah, so his whole week actually was quite good. Against Lille, Draxler was quite poor, I thought. And you had other player, Lucas, who was his usual self this time. But the important thing was that Di Maria was against Lille was playing on the right, and he really didn't hesitate to go and get the ball. I mean, this is that kind of thirst that was present in the first half of last season, which basically made him the player of the season, even though he didn't have a great second half of the season. But this kind of willingness to get the ball and get inside. However, there's going to be a debate of who we are going to have to start on Tuesday, tomorrow. Is it going to us? I think Lucas is a bit set in stone. He's been one of our best players, and would be between Draxler and Di Maria. So to get the ball rolling, I would personally go for Di Maria. For Draxler with the new boy impact. Even though Di Maria does have the experience, I do believe his best position is when he's on the right wing, when he's kind of cutting in from the right wing, then using his left foot, be it for a pass or a shot. And I think Lucas is just better at that kind of stuff. But no doubt, if Unai does decide to put Di Maria on the bench, there's really no doubt about however the game goes, and the omens are that they'll probably go about is that Di Maria will play a part. I mean, he will come on. I'm not sure how soon, but he will come on. That's for sure.
Philip, I had a question for you. Nathan, I don't know. I didn't see this in the script, so hopefully I'm not stepping on your toes here. But Meunier or Aurier for you, Philip?
I'd go for Meunier. Yeah, I'd go for Meunier. To be honest, right back is not the position I'm the most worried about. It's actually on the other flank. But I think Meunier is actually quite solid at the back. Seems a bit less erratic, and let's face it, I'm still pretty mad at Aurier for what he did against Manchester City. That's pretty much my very, very valid reasons for picking Meunier, and of course going forward, he is quite good. Not the same, doesn't offer the same thing as Aurier when he goes forward, whereas Aurier is all about power and stuff. But he to me he's not as good as last season. Meunier does bring something, and he has the experience of scoring some quite wonderful goals in the Champions League, which is pretty cool.
So, since we're focusing really on the Champions League game coming up on tomorrow night, Eric, Eric, what do you think then is PSG's mindset heading into this one? Obviously, they're at home at the Parc des Princes. Obviously, it's so tough to get a result at the Camp Nou. Everyone knows that. So, is it maybe a chance for Unai Emery to really go for this kind of game, or do you have a little bit of conservatism of doing that against such a talented attacking team?
No, I don't think there's any room for conservatism. I think you start a midfield with Matuidi, Rabiot, and Verratti, and no Thiago Motta. You've got three players that can all get forward and join the attack, and that's in that central area. You've got Kurzawa, hopefully again on the flank as opposed to Maxwell. He's got that directness and pace that can really pin them back. They're going to be starting Sergio Roberto, who's not necessarily a dyed-in-the-wool right back. I mean, he's appeared capable at times this season, appeared culpable at others. I think an attacking prerogative is going to be the way forward, because for PSG, if they really want to progress, a clean sheet would be nice, but I think a win is going to be more important. I think to get a win in Barcelona, I just don't think is a realistic possibility. I know that Barcelona are a bit hit by injuries, but I still would argue that they have their first choice 11, and to have a good result at the Parc des Princes is going to be imperative if they want to win this tie. Because if they don't get a quality result tomorrow night with their first choice 11, with PSG's first choice 11, I think that the mental damage that will do to the team, especially after playing so well on Friday, it might be really hard to come back from. PSG have been a little bit uneven against better opposition in the league and in the Champions League as well. In the recent, 2 months or so, the draw against Nice, the draw against Monaco, that I think they really, really need to show that they can, to win this tie. They need to show a good fourth-rate attacking performance if they were to have any hope. I'm not saying it's likely, but I'm saying that's what they need to do.
They're only missing two players at Barcelona, aren't they? Mascherano and Arda Turan. Is that right?
Who wouldn't start anyway?
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. They
Mascherano wouldn't start?
No, Umtiti and Piqué are definitely the first choice pairing. Umtiti hasn't played as many matches as he's been injured. As a Leon fan, I definitely have followed his progress, and he's done really well from everything I can tell. I've seen him play 6 or 7 times for Barcelona. Yeah, I mean, Finnish football is probably the league I watch the most of, aside from French. And
yeah,
I think that Mascherano, doesn't have the mobility that Umtiti has, and I think that dynamism coming out of the back.
No, I actually agree with that. But to me, Mascherano is not a centre back, first of all, so that basically makes Umtiti a better centre back anyway. But I seem to have watched a game against I think it was against Betis, where Barcelona were absolutely horrible. And, they were. Wasn't it?
They were. That match was not a season highlight for them.
Right, and it was Umtiti and Piqué. Was it Piqué? Probably at the back, and Mascherano was the defense shoulder. He was doing actually a very good job. He was probably one of the best players for Barcelona. But again, it was it wasn't their best day out. So I do agree with that. If everyone is fit, Mascherano would be on the bench. And I honestly don't remember. I just don't see. I don't watch Spanish football as much as you do, Eric, but I just don't see Arda Turan on the score sheet or as a passer, I mean, I don't even know how to describe his Barcelona career. I mean, when he's playing with so much quality around him, I mean, is he able to exist among all those star players? So I'm not really surprised when you say he wouldn't be starting anyway, because I just don't think he's good enough to dislodge whoever.
Neymar.
Who has,
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think he's good enough to.
Yeah, he's quality cover, isn't he? Really, more than anything, Arda Turan. I wouldn't mind him on my subs bench, to be fair.
No, I mean he's done well when he's played this season. I mean,
Yeah.
playing cup matches and in rotation. But no, I mean he's not that level. He did play in central midfield in that game. I'm actually looking back at that match. I watched it, but I don't really remember it that well. And
Against Betis.
Yeah, and the center back pairing was PK and Mathieu, not Umtiti.
It was Umtiti. Okay.
Right. And
I do remember Mascherano having a rather solid game, and Barcelona probably would have gone to pieces without his defense shielding abilities, which is basically what he does best, in my opinion.
Just to really bookend this talk about the Champions League game tomorrow, Unai Emery, really, he obviously came from Sevilla, so he knows a little bit about the Barcelona team he's facing, but this is the kind of game that Paris Saint-Germain have brought him in for. How important is it that he gets some kind of result in this one, Philip?
It's massive for him, but I think not many people are under any illusions at all, especially now that Thiago Silva is injured. And I do agree with Eric that this is almost some kind of blessing in disguise, because he has had some very, very strange. He has made some very strange decisions and committed some fouls. You just wouldn't expect Thiago Silva to commit. So having Marquinhos and Kimpembe, it's not that bad a centre back pairing. But the problem is you've got those three monsters up front: Messi, Neymar, and Suarez. And more than that, you've got Iniesta in midfield, capable to pick out a pass and still now that Xavi has retired, probably the best passer of the ball in world football. So I'm not even sure people will actually criticize Unai too much for not making it past Barcelona because of the change of personnel and how the squad is needed to rebuild. I mean, we definitely needed, first of all, to get the top spot against Arsenal. That's something we should have done. We didn't. So that's basically our own fault for not beating a Bulgarian side, who were not that bad actually. I mean, is there any optimism really? I mean, I certainly don't have much. I mean, I would have would Iniesta not be playing or one of the front three, but I just don't see many PSG fans realistically thinking we can get past Barcelona, unfortunately.
Eric, what do you think on this? I mean, I mentioned that Unai Emery's obviously been brought in for Champions League football and improving their results in Europe, but they've also set a poor precedent in the sense that they sacked Laurent Blanc, obviously, for getting to the quarterfinals and winning every cup, and they're only second in the league and going out at the round of 16. Yes, it's to Barcelona, but it does put a little bit of pressure on this game, a little bit more than you might expect, even with facing a strong side like Barcelona, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I believe that I don't think I don't necessarily agree with Philip. I think I have cautious optimism on this. Barcelona have been fairly uneven over the past few weeks. I know they had a big result this weekend, but they've shown they could be got at. They've shown that they can be ill-disciplined as well. I'm thinking about the two Copa del Rey matches against Atletico Madrid and Atletico. Obviously they have a reputation, but they haven't been to their usual standard this year. And I think anybody who watches Spanish football wouldn't disagree with that. And I think that there's a chance. Barcelona haven't been as imperious as they have been. I mean, Arda's been down to injuries, and Iniesta's missed quite a bit of time. Umtiti as well. The right back situation's been hit and miss with Vidal and Sergio Roberto both missing periods of time. But I do think that Barcelona, they're not there for the taking, but if PSG play to the best of their capabilities, at a level at or exceeding what they showed on against Bordeaux. I know Bordeaux are nowhere near the quality of Barcelona, but that style, that verve, that directness, that swagger, that confidence that PSG display when they're at their very best, that's been missing a lot of times since Ibrahimovic left as a sort of emotional fulcrum for the team. But I think that there seems to be sort of a coming together in terms of the team's confidence as of late. And, going to tough situations, going to Bordeaux twice and winning by wide margins, both in the Coupe de League semifinal on Friday, that they've shown that they have that in their locker now. I don't think they really showed that at any occasion in the first 4 months of the season. I think that's starting to change. I know there have been blips. I think the draw against Monaco certainly counts in that category, but I think that there's a real possibility they could get something here. I'd say maybe a 2-1 win if I had to have an optimistic prediction. Betting, I'd probably say 2-2 draw, but I don't think they'll be out of the tie by the time the final whistle blows tomorrow evening.
It's going to be a very, very interesting night tomorrow night. It's definitely one of those European ties again that will have many fans watering at the mouth, I think.
There's a poll on L'Equipe. What's your prediction for PSG Barcelona? PSG win 34%, draw 21%. Barcelona victory 45%. I'm gonna say I'm edging towards a Barcelona victory. Probably not trouncing, maybe, because I haven't watched them that often, but I have read, and I do agree that most of the time I don't find Barcelona absolutely unplayable like they used to be. But I still think for the reason I gave beforehand, so Iniesta on the front three is just going to be far too hard to contain them. I mean, I'm sure we're going to score against them. Of that, I have very little doubt. But will it be enough? I just don't think so.
Yeah, and that's the problem. If you allow Barcelona that away goal lead, it's so difficult to get a result back at the Catalan Giants. It's such a tough ground to go to. We'll move on to another team looking forward to midweek action, and that's Saint-Etienne, who travelled to Old Trafford on Thursday night. But Eric, they prepared for this one with a strong 4-0 win against Lorient that went untraditionally well for a low-scoring side. But was it a case of Saint-Etienne being excellent, or was it a case of Lorient being middling at best?
I would say probably more of the latter. I mean, Lorient have been really poor defensively this season. Under Cassoni, they've shown a great willingness to get forward and to be dynamic and attack and to score goals. And I think we've talked about this in the program before. We talked about, Lorient have these weapons. They have Waris, they have Mukanjo. They have the players they brought in who could, maybe improve things. Wakaso looks a decent enough signing. But they're so poor at the back. They're so poor defensively. And I think that much as PSG had set out a strong team and tried to make a mark on Friday, Saint-Etienne did the same thing against Lorient. And playing with more of a willingness to get forward, more of a willingness to attack than we're used to seeing from Christophe Galtier's teams. Playing this new look 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, I'm not sure what you really want to call it. I think that we saw a team who, have a high degree of confidence and can really take heart in being, a team on the pitch. I think that this is probably the same team that they're going to play. I wish. Do either of you know whether Jorginho is cup tied?
I was going to ask you.
Good question.
I know that Aruca were in the qualifying rounds of the Europa League. I'm not sure if they got into the group stage. So
I'm talking. I will search.
Okay. So yeah, I think that playing this new look 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3 hybrid with Hamouma as a false 9 has definitely yielded some positive dividends, and I think that we can really look forward to seeing Hamouma's dynamism up front and seeing how he can play in the likes of Jorginho and Mane Peke cutting inside, Henri Saive if he plays in that role, or maybe Vincent Pajo or Jordan Verretou. There's a real drive to Saint-Etienne to be positive in attack, and we've seen this when the attacks are down. We saw this against Anderlecht, that 3-2 comeback when they had in the final group stage match to top the group, when the odds seemed against them, down 2-0 away from home. They can't score goals, et cetera, et cetera. But to have that sort of confidence that they can pull out of their pocket, again, I'll continue the PSG analogy, when they're on form, they can be really dangerous. And they're going to be difficult to score against. I mean, we don't argue that. I mean, Loic Perrin is, one of the world's most underrated center backs, if you ask me. How he's not had more France caps is, down to prejudices or whatever way it is. But Florentin Pogba had a strong match at left back as well. I think that he's not quite as dynamic a presence as, say, Sheikh Mbengue is, but he's certainly an upgrade on the likes of Polama. And there's just a lot of positives to take from this match. Again, the quality of the opposition, there's definitely a big caveat there in terms of Lorient's performances this season, particularly under Cassoni and being so open at the back. But are Saint-Etienne going to care about that? No, they're going to care about, hey, we can score. We can take a match to someone. Let's go to Old Trafford. Let's get a 1-1 draw. Let's get a 0-0 draw. Reverse fixture next week. We can open things up. United have been shaky at the back at times. I know that they've improved to some degree under Van Gaal under Mourinho vis-a-vis Van Gaal, but they can be got at. And I think that that's going to really inspire a massive amount of confidence for Liver going into this pair of matches against United.
Yeah, and just to mention, I've just checked up Jorginho. I remember Thiago mentioning this as well. He didn't start for Arouca until November, so he's not played an enormous amount in Portugal. So I think he's not cup tied from the looks of things.
I've been looking at his appearances, and it does seem that he only played in the Portuguese Liga since July. So he should get the green light. There's no reason he shouldn't be playing against Manchester United.
Yeah, and talking about that very quickly for that game at the weekend, I really liked seeing Hamouma in that hole instead of trying to throw out a Roux or something like that to try and be a striking option. Yeah. I really liked him in that central area. I thought he played really well.
It's the first time he's done that as well. I mean, he hasn't been he has been playing shall we say very very much misfiring centre forwards, Galtier, but he never had. Well, Hamouma has been injured as well, but he hasn't tried that a lot, playing some kind of a false nine. I mean, I don't know if Hamouma was playing as a false nine as a whole game, but it's definitely something new, and it seems to be that Saint-Etienne have been pretty much revigorated since the winter break, especially in front of goal. One of those teams that you really felt that they needed this winter break to regroup, so that the players got back from injuries, that they get a couple of players. Well, actually, they only got Jorginho, but it looks pretty good up front these days, which is good, which is very good news. And I do share this time Eric's optimism for this game. I think there's something to be done there, because Manchester United have had trouble scoring goals against organised defences, and Saint-Etienne is one of the most organised in Europe. So it'll be tough for them for Manchester United to score, I think.
Yeah, and quickly mentioning that on themselves, I'm pretty sure every other Manchester United fan listening will agree with me that it's been pretty frustrating watching the amount of chances we create against these teams that put blockades of defences, and we can't seem to stick them away. I mean, there's up to 20 shots in some games, and 6 or 7 on target. Keepers are playing terrific football. Defences are getting blocks in. We're really struggling to finish off chances. We've missed I think Man United have missed at least, I think Mata himself has missed 2 of them, but about 3 goals where he's literally in front of the goal. It almost seems harder to miss than score, and it's happened at least 3 times this season. So against a team like Saint-Etienne, where we've mentioned every single time they've played, they're a terrific defensive team. They really are solid, even without Ruffier in net, who's obviously been injured recently. I think is it Moulin who's been the stand-in, hasn't it? Jeremy Moulin, he's been very good as well.
Yeah, he's been good.
Really
Ruffier came back in yesterday.
I thought it was still Moulin. I must have been watching it. They look quite similar from a distance.
No, Ruffier played yesterday, but I was also quite impressed on how Moulin was had improved, because in Europa League games, for instance, I think it was against Anderlecht or Mainz. I don't know, just didn't have the same kind of presence, and he looked up for it. For instance, in the derby. Well, granted, he had a great back, great defense in front of him, but he seemed to have gained in confidence, which is good. It means that Saint-Etienne don't have to be over reliant on Ruffier. That's a very good sign.
Yeah.
Did you? I don't know if you caught this news. There was this talk of Manchester United limiting the amount of Saint-Etienne fans at Old Trafford, which would be the visiting contingent, 2,000 or something like that, maybe a bit more.
I've not heard anything at this moment, anyway.
But anyways, there seems to be a lot of people going to Manchester anyway, even though they don't have tickets. And I'm speaking from experience. When I went to Manchester City with PSG, was that the locals really couldn't care less about the Europa League. Are Manchester United treating this the same way? That'd be good.
I think, surprisingly this season, I think Manchester United in all cup competitions have shown a willingness to really go for it. I think that although we've had not great results in the Europa League, we weren't great against Fenerbahce, especially in the away leg. We weren't great against Feyenoord in the away leg. But Ibrahimovic has started pretty much every single game in the Europa League, other than the second one. I think against I think it was Zoya. We've really, the thing about Manchester United at the moment as well, especially in those forward areas, we've got so many players to fit in that are all quality when they're on their day that we try and fit them all in and fit them all into the games that we have, because we're still in the Carling Cup. That final's a week on Sunday. We've got the FA Cup this upcoming weekend. We haven't got another Premier League game until mid-March, I think, which is a little bit strange because there's another international break in between it. But
you don't play in the Premiership until mid-March.
Yeah, we've got a long break off. It's because of FA Cup, Carling Cup. It's a strange one. So
the derby won't be rescheduled.
That won't be rescheduled. The report at the moment is that's going to possibly even be between the final two games of the season in May. We've had that happen. Yeah, we've had that happen before, and it was against Man City as well, if I remember rightly. I think it was their second title-winning season. I think that happened. So yeah, it's a strange one. I think we also play. I think it's Tottenham and Arsenal, the two games either side of it as well. So that's going to be a fun run-in. But yeah,
does the Metropolitan Police usually allow the derby to be played on a weekday? This is what I'm quite surprised with.
It's been, I think it was last year, one of them was on a Monday, and it was on a Wednesday that year that I mentioned where we moved it all again. So, but I think they're taking it reasonably seriously. I mean, Pogba's played in quite a few of the Europa League games as well. We don't tend to switch out the keeper either for it, so David De Gea has played fairly regularly. So it's a Champions League place at the end of the day. I don't see why more teams take it more seriously.
Yeah.
And especially how competitive that top end of the Premier League is. I mean, yes, there's only about 2 points between about 5 different teams at the moment, but it's such an important thing to get a Champions League place because you don't get that from the cup competitions or anything like that. So, yeah, take it seriously. It's another piece of silverware, and personally, we've never won it. We've never won the UEFA Cup when it was that either. I'd quite like to win it. It'd be quite nice, I think. I quite like the competition, to be fair. I think it does a good thing. So whether that's shared at the club, I don't know.
It's a lot of games.
Yes, that's the only
problem.
Lot. Yeah, but they seem to be taking it pretty seriously.
I always am amazed at how they both put 2 rounds of Europa League, while which is played during the same time frame as a round of the Champions League. Of course, they're doing this for television, I know, but it's still very
So
all about money.
Quickly, what's your prediction in this kind of match then? Are you expecting Saint-Etienne to be really holding out for a possible goalless draw and taking them back to a tough game at the Stade, get back at home?
The Stade Guichard.
Yeah,
I would say probably a 2-1 United win with perhaps if I'm being optimistic, Sente winning the reverse 1-0 and going through in away goals. Something like that.
Philip, what do you think?
I'd go for 1-1 because Manchester United do tend to never ever lose. I mean, I'm quite surprised to see you haven't lost since November.
Yeah.
Which, given all the critics Mourinho got, it seems, well, that's pretty good. That's not bad. But so many draws at Old Trafford.
The only game we've lost since November was the 2-1 loss to Hull in the second leg of the Carling Cup. So it's been a pretty good
count, does it?
No, we won on aggregate anyway, so it didn't matter. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting one. I'm cautiously optimistic because of Saint-Etienne's result in midweek, at least against Nice, where they didn't really look good at all against them, and they struggled against a quicker attack. And if Manchester United can play like that, which they showed at the weekend as well, they were really, really good against. Against Watford, they were really, really good.
It's Watford.
Yeah, I will take anything at this moment. But we'll move on to I know Philip's favourite topic usually, which is relegation talk. And we've already mentioned Lorient's loss and their poor form, and the fight at the bottom is really as tight as ever as it has been this season. They're joined by Bastia, who are also on 22 points and without a win since mid-December. Caen sit in the relegation playoff place with 4 points ahead of those two, before a glut of four sides remain perilously above that dotted line on 27 points. Philip, how is the race to avoid the drop going as we enter the final third of the season?
Well, before this game, I had made some kind of a decision, saying, "Okay, I've got these three sides who should be ending in the bottom three because I went through the final run-in, even though there are still not 13 games to go, which is quite long, and Angers' win at Lille basically ballsed everything up." Which was, I was expecting Lille to win this one. I thought they were not playing too bad at PSG, and that it's extremely surprising loss, especially to Angers, who haven't been doing too well away from home. So that changes everything. I'm still adamant that Lorient are not too good to go down, but have the players that are, shall we say, good. Good in the final third of the season. I'm thinking about Michael Siani and amongst other players, but if they keep defending like that, it does seem to be quite difficult. I'm looking also at their away points. That looks absolutely horrendous. 5 points from 13 games. That's not a lot. Bastia would be also I thought Angers were going to go down. Bastia would be the team I would say will be going down as well. The amount of red cards they have is absolutely horrendous as well. It's really, really bad. I don't know. I don't see much happening, and I reckon that they were on a good run, but now they're stuck in some kind of a rut, and I just don't see that rut ending. Really. I honestly believe that maybe even bottom. And the side I have as a potential side finishing in the playoff is Caen, who I think as well have played some good stuff, but it's just not happening at the moment. Lost 4-0 at home to Bordeaux last. That was on Tuesday. That's a really, really poor result. And they lost at Dijon 2-0. So basically, relegation 6-pointer. And that was on Saturday. So yeah, there you have it. But so maybe those the three sides that are in the bottom three are not going to change. But then you've got Caen who have a game in hand, Bastia have a game in hand, Metz have this half they have to finish against Lyon. Nancy also have a game in hand, and Nantes as well. Nantes were actually 17th before their win against Marseille last night, and now they're 12th. So that just shows you how tight it is. Montpellier won at Nancy. They're 7 points from the bottom and in 11th. It's just extremely, extremely tight. So maybe some sides like Metz or Nancy or even Dijon are going to get pulled in, but to me, yeah, the bottom three, I think they're facing a very tough task not to go down. But again, it'll change next week.
I just wanted to highlight a really great stat I heard on the Ligue 1 review earlier about, well, you mentioned Bastia's red cards, and the leader of the way is Yannick Kawczak, the battling midfielder. He's had 3 red cards this season. He's had 7 since 2013, late 2013. That's 5 more than any other player in Liga, which is outstanding.
Yeah, it's not, and I think we do have quite. If you compare it to the Premiership, I think we have a fair bit of red cards. Not sure if I can pull out the statistic before the end of the show, but yeah, we do tend to have a lot of red cards for in Liga. As I browse through the results, when you browse through the results, sometimes they give you the red cards or the penalties missed. It seems to be much more in Liga than in the Bundesliga or the Premiership, for instance.
Yeah, I never know how much they would be, but I'd love to find out how much the clubs fined Kawczak over the years for the amount of red cards he's got.
Not a lot, I would think. you probably didn't pay anything. I mean,
if it was on my Football Manager save, he'd be out of pocket. I think he'd be out of a house.
Yeah.
Eric, what do you think to the bottom of the table? I mean, we mentioned Lorient already looked pretty terrible at the weekend. Bastia again in discipline as well as in different sort of fated them to be poor, but again, Caen have been good in spells, but have been pulled back into that drop zone as well. What are your thoughts?
I think you've got a couple. I think I don't disagree with much of what Philip said. I do think that there are 2 massive matches this weekend, and that's well, maybe even 3, but definitely Caen hosting Lille. Caen win that match. They go 2 points clear of Lille with a match in hand. And if you've got Nancy drawing in Angers, and you've got, say, Metz winning or drawing at home against Nantes, Metz have been in decent form except for this last weekend. Then you could see Lille in that playoff spot, and they would be 2 points below those teams above them. Now, I think that to me is really the most interesting aspect of all of this. That we have Lille with this significant investment, maybe not in the window that just ended, but certainly going forward, the club hoped to invest. But what if this club goes down? I think that is, a really,
that would be quite funny, though.
Christian had mentioned, speaking with Adam and I about the topics to our editor, Christian, had spoken with Adam and I about the topics in the review, and he mentioned, what about Lille, I said, whatever, they're mid-table. Then I look, I say, well, actually, with that result for Nantes, they're not. They're 17th, and 2 of the teams below them have a game in hand. Now, Bastia and Lorient, I'm not saying they're cut loose yet. Bastia are tough at home. Lorient can score goals. Caen have been decent. It's entirely possible we'll go down. That to me is incredibly intriguing, given what we're expecting from the Lopez ownership and what we're expecting going forward. I think that's something that definitely bears watching. I think one could even argue that Caen Lille is the match of the weekend.
I agree with this. It's just the run-in is quite kind to Lille, though. I mean, with all the games they're having to play, they've got the only game, pretty tough game they have is Monaco away on the penultimate day, which is they're going to lose that one pretty much. But they do have the last 3 games, home games are Guingamp, Metz, and Nantes, which if they try, I think they'll win. But again, it's just extremely possible. Yeah. It would be quite funny though, with all that money invested with Cheka and El Ghazi and the like being invested and coming over from all over Europe for just to play in Ligue 2 would be quite
And I think their entire season really has been summed up by Yves Bissouma on his debut, who scores a goal, and it's a cracking strike. It's an absolutely wonderful goal. He then balloons a clearance that leads eventually to Farama Diédhiou crossing for Romain Thomas for what turns out to be the winner, and then he gets himself sent off just before the end of the game. It's calamitous to maybe say, and it may be a mix of everything from Bissouma on his debut, but. A shame for the youngster. Is there anyone else, Philip, you think might be dragged in?
Well, Eric, you were talking about 3 games. Lille Caen was the first one.
Oh yeah, well, I mean that I think is the most intriguing in terms of where it could leave Leo. But Mets hosting Nantes. I mean, Mets. I think aside from the weekend, had looked really good for most of the beginning of 2013. Diabate had been important. I know Nathan's mentioned that more than once. Bernard Kohad playing as number 10 has looked fairly strong as well. And then obviously Angers Nancy as well. And I don't think that'll be a terribly exciting game given those two teams' reputations. No. But I think if one of them wins and they're on 30 points. If Nancy win, they're on 30 points with a match in hand. I think that they could start looking just about safe. I think we're probably looking at a 41-point potentially cutoff, depending on whether or not you include the playoff place in that.
That's a really intriguing one, to be fair, Angers and Nancy. If Nancy can pick up a win in that one. And like you've mentioned, Philip, there's a lot of games still to be played. There's Mets with a game in hand, Caen have a game in hand, Bastia have a game in hand because the suspended game in midweek as well. There's just a glut of teams constantly toing and froing between where they are. Because, I mean, if Montpellier have been better in the week, but they're only 29 points. The cut-off point is probably where Rennes are on 33 at the moment. There's just a lot of teams fighting for almost too few places, it feels like it sometimes, but we might see it slowly start to expand sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I do reckon Toulouse are safe now.
Yes,
with 33 points, I would say that.
Yeah, and I'm for me personally, I'm worried about both Lorient and Bastia. I think that I know it's a 4-point gap, but I'm starting to see signs of them not quite picking up where they need to be at this point in the season. And I'm especially Lorient, they were awful against Saint-Etienne. I really fear for them now. But we'll move on to not really a lighter topic at all, but the two Olympique sides who are in varying states of crisis. Lyon lost again at Gamgomp, despite a reprieve in midweek, while Marseille have lost 2 in a row away to Metz and Nantes. Starting with OL, Eric, what happened at the weekend that undid that good work they pulled up against Nancy?
Poor defending. I think that's really what it comes down to. I think, to be quite blunt, I think that Diakabi looked off the pace. I think the team rushed him back. I think that, obviously their hand was forced, but Jallet looked off the boil too. I mean, Raphael's injured. I have a lot of time for Christophe Jallet, but I think playing 2 matches in short succession, particularly after having come back from missing most of the season with injury, that undid him, and I think, it was just a tough week for Lyon defensively. Again, having to travel to Guingamp to play this early Saturday matches. These early Saturday matches have been horrible for Lyon. I think this is their 10th loss in the league this season, and 7 of them have been in matches played at 5:00, which is kind of a mind-boggling statistic. Just a poor defensive effort. I think that, Nico Benezet, I mean, making his first start of the season with a goal and assist, he's a dangerous player, but I don't think that there was enough, credence given to how he could potentially affect a match. And I think that Lyon were just asleep at the wheel. They got that early goal, which was well taken and well worked, but I think that they sat back too much, and there wasn't the same aggression and impression going forward. And Guingamp just picked them up on the counter, easy as you like, and it's a frustrating situation for this team who keep flitting in and out of seeming solidity as regards their defensive abilities.
Yeah, I must say I was really, really frustrated watching the goals, especially from Guingamp. I mean, their equaliser is a counter-attack, which, yes, it can catch teams by surprise, but when you watch it back, you catch the players jogging back instead of sprinting. There's Gonalon, there's Yango and Biwa. They're both jogging back and leaving Morel absolutely alone to try and fend off 3 players when the ball gets into the box. And the second is Jallet just absolutely falling asleep on Benezet. I can't believe a right back of his quality and his experience. And I think he shows it in his own face when he realises the goal goes in. His hands go straight to his head. I can't believe that he's allowed a player to get in front of him at that angle. It's criminal, I think, for a team of that. And they can't have that happening. And that, I think, I'm pretty certain, in fact, that's probably killed their Champions League hopes for this season. I cannot imagine them getting into that 3rd spot. And Philip,
well, I didn't think they were. I thought that last week was the moment their hopes were dead, basically. So I don't think this defeat changes much. Well, I think is there were some kind of excuses last week at Saint-Etienne with Mamana not playing that often, but usually Younger Mbiu and Jacobi didn't form that bad a centre back pairing, but they did lose against a good Guingamp side. But still, yeah, it just confirmed that Lyon won't be playing in the Champions League in 17-18, which is a shame for the club, for French football in general. Let's see how Nice will be doing in the group stage if they get there. It's a whole rebuilding process. I suppose you were going to ask me about Lacazette, Nathan.
Hey, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Ultras have short memories, and yeah, I feel a bit bad for the guy. Like I said last week, the timing is not very good, and he's still scoring the goals. But what happened on Wednesday is a bit is a bit ridiculous, really. Him being booed for his comments, and I think the fans were just absolutely horrified at the manner of defeat. I mean, you have lost at Geoffroy before. It's not something new. What is new is that they've lost so often in a row. I think it was 3 in a row for the first time since the 80s, something like that. And also the manner of defeat. That's what they. That's what they remember. They also remember Lacazette having this quote just before a derby in early February, and basically saying, "Okay, guys, have fun in the Europa League. I'm off."
Yeah,
and it's basically his message, and it probably didn't go down too well.
No,
I mean, we really are not talking about that game in the Europa League, actually. I mean, we talked about Saint-Etienne, Manchester United, but there is another French team playing on Thursday. And I don't know, the media don't really seem to be noticing that Lyon are actually going to Holland on Thursday.
And Eric, what do you think of that game against RZ? Is this something they should be trying to maybe push for now, with Champions League pretty much completely out of the question in Liga?
I mean, what you're saying right there, Nathan, I couldn't agree with that more. Yeah, absolutely. You know, Lyon on their day can be dangerous. I mean, they showed that against Monaco earlier in the season. They showed that a handful of times last season as well. They can perform. If everything falls exactly right, they can perform. Again, you know, this Europa League has some strong teams in it, and I don't think we should take anything for granted. But the time being, you got a very winnable tie. And who knows? You avoid big teams in the draw, and you get to a surprising point in the league. We've seen that, you know, in the past with teams in the Champions League and in the Europa League. I mean, we think about Schalke reaching the semifinals a few years ago, Lyon reaching the semifinals a few years ago. You know, strange things can happen in knockout football. That's the Champions League, but I mean, I think the same thing goes. You know, Lyon I would doubt that they would fall out of the top 6. With that, especially with that game in hand, given how inconsistent everybody below them has been. But you know, unless the club's hierarchy and Genesio feel that Lyon are in danger of losing European competition full stop next season, I think they should absolutely go all hands in, or all hands on deck, whatever the expression would be with the Europa League. Absolutely.
It's an interesting one. And it's always that interesting caveat of that Champions League place now as well with the Europa League. But another team that are struggling, and that's Marseille. They were maybe slightly harshly done by at Metz, where they really should have probably put that one away before Jan Jouffre ended their hopes. And then not really absolutely ploughed them, I think, in that one. They were really, really good, especially in that first half. Philip, what was your take on it? Marseille is sort of... There was a lot of optimism after all the money and Dimitri Payet coming in, but there's clearly still a lot of work to be done, isn't there?
I think we're not giving not enough credit for that first half performance, and especially Sergio Conceição for being who he is, for being very much a motivator and being not a very demanding, manager, and not playing out of their skins with the very, very high pressing, with Stepinski doing some absolutely fantastic stuff on that second goal, and yes, Rudy Garcia really went into his players, and yes, Marseille weren't very good, but not was just very, very good, and Garcia changing two players in the after just 30 minutes is really quite unheard of. I mean, you do that when one of your players is injured, but it really just goes to show that Garcia thought that the players were just absolutely awful, and the subs kind of worked, even though you don't make that defense better just by making two substitutions. I don't know if Evra was playing that much for Juventus during the later stage of his career in Italy, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't expecting that kind of attacking nous when he signed for Marseille. I think he knew Ligue 1. He played at Monaco. That's where he played his first games. That's how he got his big money move to Manchester United, and the rest is history, and I really do believe that he thought that, okay, this league is quite defensive. I'll have a couple of few seasons not too stressful, not too hard, certainly not as hard as a Premiership, not as demanding. But guess what? Liga is much better this season than it is on other seasons, and not thanks to their new manager are attacking, free flowing football and all that. And Eva has struggled a lot. But yeah, I mean, it is to me more down to Not and Metz also for not pulling over because Marseille are coming to town. I mean, Guingamp didn't do anything on Wednesday. They honestly they just didn't show up, and maybe Marseille were expecting not to do the same on Sunday evening, but they didn't, because if they didn't win that game, they'd be in trouble.
And Eric, I do want to focus a little bit on Nantes. I know Marseille have had a difficult week of two tough results, but they were absolutely excellent in that first half, and better than certainly from what I've seen after this winter break. They really lifted to the occasion, didn't they?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was not able to see this particular match, but yeah, I mean, Conceição has this team playing with a huge amount of confidence. He's given more time to Valentin Rongier, who really appears to have come back from his injury, all guns blazing. He's given more time for Adrian Thomason. And I know he's a player you yourself have mentioned on occasion, Nathan, is being a really impressive creative player. And Amin Harit obviously was suspended for this match, but I think he's been a really key player as well in the survival. I mean, being made a focal point at a young age, I think has really boosted his confidence. There's still some issues with the strikers. I still think that going forward, Lima and Dubois can be a little bit more forward-thinking than they can defensively solid. But there's a makings of a decent team here. I'm not saying one that was challenged for Europe, but one that I'm saying should comfortably avoid relegation. They're certainly a lot more pleasing to watch than they were under Girard or even Der Zakarian. And it's been an impressive. Start to the Portuguese his tenure. He's given chances to these young players who've been sort of ballyhooed, but perhaps haven't had the best rung out of them. I don't think Der Zakarian gave a lot of these players as much of a chance as he might have liked. But same with Girard. But yeah, I think Conceição has the right attitude. I think that I think it remains to be seen how some of these transfers will shake out, and what will happen to the club as regards this third-party ownership scheme that they've been linked with. But I think a really, really positive start to Nantes. I've always had a soft spot for Nantes. I think that the crowd there, every time you see the Beaujoire on television, it's well full, and they have great tifos and great support. And that's the kind of thing you want to see. That's the kind of thing that you want to see represented when you see a Ligue 1 matches being televised. And they have a great tradition too with their academy and all the titles they won in their past as well. And so I think there's just a lot to be said for not playing well and for Conceição getting the best out of this youngish team.
Yeah, Beaujoire was excellent last night. And I just want to chip in with where they really excelled in this game. And that was partially tactically, but the players were excellent as well. I think the 4-4-2 worked superbly against Marseille and really exploited their weakness, which is their centre-back pairing. They looked all ends. They looked like they couldn't handle them for most of the night. Stepinski showed the talent that maybe that we've seen glimpses of on occasions. He scored an excellent second goal as well. It's an absolute wonderful goal. Salah was working superbly hard, which, you know, we seen him come in and out of games. It was really great in this one. The midfield pairing of Rongier and the experience of Gillet was really, really superb. They worked exceptionally hard. Rongier had to be almost dragged off the pitch by the end of the game. He was absolutely shattered. I thought Pardo on one wing and Thomason on the other one were excellent. The fullbacks were great coming back and forward. The centre-back pairing was solid and really wasn't troubled until that second half where Gomes started to have an impact before he got injured. And I just want to very quickly mention that, Philip, with no real options on the bench for Marseille as well, how big is that loss for Gomes, possibly for a month, possibly missing Le Classique as well in a couple of weeks? It's a big miss for them, isn't it?
It's very good news for Paris Saint-Germain fans. No, very, very bad news for Marseille in general. I don't really see who Garcia can place to replace him. It's not just the number. I've seen some very good stats from Gomis saying that he has scored as many goals as his best ever season in Ligue 1, and there's still a quarter of the season to go. Well, a bit less for him now. It's 3 to 6 weeks his injury forecast, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. 3 to 6 weeks is what we've seen.
I mean, it was always a case of him being. It's good that he's here because he knows how to score, how to get goals in Ligue 1. If you feed him, he'll score. I mean, 16 goals from 24 games. You know, it's not Cavani good, but it's it's decent. And without him, it's a massive blow. It means that Thauvin has to step up and becomes basically the goal getter. Okay, they've got Aaron Leia and Antoine Rabillard, but it's just not on a par with Gomis. But it just goes to show that Marseille do need at least 2 strikers to mount a European challenge. And to be honest, it's maybe blessing in disguise for France's coefficient, because Marseille, I'm not quite sure Marseille would be ready to do that just yet. And right now, without Gomis, I don't think they'll be going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, and just to punctuate Gomes' impact, you've mentioned his Ligue 1 stats, but he scored as many goals this season as he did in his entire 2-year stay at Swansea as well, which puts a little bit of an exclamation mark on how well he's playing at the moment.
And maybe how little of a chance he was been given.
Yeah, true. He had a brief spell where people fell in love with him for about 3 months, as they tend to do in the Premier League. But
that's it.
That's all that we have time for this week. My thanks to Eric and Philip. Join us for the preview show hosted by Eric on Thursday, and we will see you here at the same time, same place next week. A bientôt and goodbye.